You know what's an original theme for an indie game? Farming. Can't tell you how few cozy farming games I've seen. Well, besides Harvest Moon, obviously, and Stardew Valley, of course. Plus Disney Dreamlight Valley's pretty popular. And Palia. Recently, Animal Crossing is kinda... Okay. Enough of the snark. Wholesome farming has admittedly become slightly overdone in the last generation of games, and I think the big push after Animal Crossing New Horizons may have officially tipped the scales somewhat into cynicism. But gosh darn it, I just can't say no to cute, cozy countryside settings. Besides, cynicism has no place in something that makes you happy, right? So that's right, we're making a cute farming game, sue me. And I think you'll find this game to be quite a charming spin on the genre. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into the plan for this project. First things first, it's going to be small. What kind of fool would try and make something big as their first major release? Huh? What was that?
Doesn't look like anything to me.
Yeah, one day. We're looking for a win, so Trace and Charles have been put into cryosleep. But don't worry, little buddy, your parents still love you. As I was saying though, this project will be short-term. Dare I say, finish before 2026? I'd certainly hope so anyway. But let's first get into the story. You're a farming gal who has fallen on hard times due to incurring an incredibly ridiculous debt buying your farm. You had to take to the fastest way to make money that you can, and that means selling the most dangerous and most profitable crops possible. What makes them so dangerous though? Well, these crops are highly explosive. That means the slightest nudge or over-ripening will spell disaster for your farm. And with this theme, what better name could we choose than The Bomb Has Been Planted? Look, we already made the title. In terms of genre, it's a puzzle tycoon game, split into two distinct segments. The first is Harvest Mode. This is essentially a spin on Minesweeper. You know how it is, something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue, up. You dig holes in your farm to find the crops, but you can't use your shovel on them. Remember, they'll explode on the slightest nudge. So you need to dig around and use the roots to guide you towards them. The roots in this case being the numbers in Minesweeper. This is where things change though, because when you've figured out where the crops are, you can pull out your extractor, which is the only safe way to remove them from the ground. This device does cost to use, so you can't simply spam it everywhere. You'll also have more tools in your arsenal aside from the shovel and extractor, of course. You have scarecrows that act as flags, and a dowsing rod metal detector for tight spots where you can pay a hefty amount to reveal any nearby mines in the area. During the harvest, you'll have to find all the crops in the ground at the given time without accidentally hitting a crop with your shovel, as if you run out of time or dig the wrong spot, boom, there goes the neighborhood. This is only half the game though, because the second half is maintenance. After a successful or unsuccessful harvest, it's time to tally up your costs, looking at profits from crops, subtracting costs such as tools and potentially, blowing up the farm. And herein lies the tycoon half of the game, where you strategize the spending of your profits, using it to upgrade things such as farm size, crop value, and one of the bigger changes to the Minesweeper aspect, which I'll explain later. All of this is in service to making more profits down the line, in order to be able to pay off your ludicrous debt more effectively. There will be more things to do during the maintenance half of the game, but we'll be leaving that for the next devlog. So that's the basic gameplay loop summarized, but what's all these nice explanations without something to show for it? Well, what if I said that the basic mechanics of the harvest side are already done? That's right, we're not just ideas guys. We've already made what is essentially a beefed up Minesweeper with a pretty coat of paint and some new features. Realistically speaking, you should probably have already figured that out. It's been playing in the background, what are you, blind? But I'm getting ahead of myself. This is underselling the progress it took to reach this. Let's see things from a bit further in the past.
Yeah, that's one fine looking barbecue pit. Why doesn't mine look like that?
So yeah, progress has been pretty significant. This project's only been in the works for a few months in truth. The first thing our coder, Dennis, worked on was basically, making Minesweeper. There's not much entertaining to discuss on the back end here, but Dennis did however make this madman scribble in the back of a notebook like a lunatic with red yarn on a corkboard, so I'll decipher that briefly. To elaborate on the equation a little, this is the way that the game refers to the squares around the selected square. This is primarily used to figure out where to place numbers, for example by looking at all the squares around an empty space in order to count how many of them are bottomed. It's also used for one of the tools in the dowsing rod to scan squares in an area centered on the selected tile. This is used for finding bombs in the surrounding area as well. The amazing thing about this is that while the game is of course made of tiled squares, the equation actually functions with any kind of tiles, like the hexagonal ones seen here. Over time, after getting the main pieces functioning correctly, it fell onto yours truly as the artist to pretty it up a tad. And I did just that. Making new grass tiles based on Animal Crossing of course, and then the first 3 tools we made in the shovel, extractor, and the aforementioned dowsing rod. The design for this was basically intended to look like a metal detector, but with the features of a dowsing rod to keep it in line with the theme. For those unaware, a dowsing rod's an old divination tool that was intended to find hidden things on the ground. So I used it as reference for the handle in order to make the design more unique in the silhouette. I also made all the tools have the same palette, just to keep things interconnected in a fun way. So they all use green, blue, and yellow. The background is simply a hilly skyline, as it won't be more than something to fill the empty space. There's also the main character you play as. Her name's Tilda. Tilda Soil. Clever, I know. We have more name puns where that came from, rest assured. Tilda's design is inspired by the protagonist of my old animated short film, basically just with a costume change. But I always liked her, so she has a new home here. That's not all in regards to her design, however, as her outfit and palette are also inspired by a sunflower. With her straw hat behind her head acting as petals, her green overalls like a stalk, etc. I think she's pretty cute, but I'll likely be going back to refine her design as time goes on and she starts to be animated. She doesn't actually serve a gameplay function in the harvest section, she's simply intended as a way to visualize what the player's doing. So she'll dig when you dig, switch tools when you switch tools, and all that cool stuff. There's also a timer, which is a literal bomb. The fuse frames the screen and burns away as the timer drains, building a nice foreboding pressure. The fuse doesn't animate yet, but just be patient, there's plenty of time for visual flair later. Speaking of later, what's next? Well, plenty of work's been made in the game that wasn't shown here, so in the next video we'll likely focus on the maintenance half of the game, mainly the shop section. Then once that works and the game saves the money you make after each harvest, we'll officially have the basic gameplay loop. That means cranking out the first demo sometime after that if things progress smoothly. So please give a sub and like if you want to support The Bomb Has Been Planted. It makes people care about the project and would really help build our confidence in it. To round out, I'd like to give a quick thanks to previous patrons of ours. That's You Lose Some, Jesso Doodles, Natalie Layton, Venomous Squirrel, and my mum. Thanks, Mum. That's all for now.